So anyway, I just as a disclaimer, I don't assume I really don't assume necessarily that everybody here is disappointed in the outcome of the election. I am personally, and I don't mind saying that. Um, and I'm asking myself how I can use this experience as a means of spiritual growth. I'll just say it, yeah, I'm disappointed and concerned, but that's my current experience. That doesn't mean that it's yours. If it's not yours, I mean, you can apply the principles of right effort to something that is challenging. The principles are the same, and like we all know, life is never short on challenges. So, I mean, we just look at this as an example of how the Dharma of right effort might be a doorway to spiritual growth in the face of any challenging situation. This is, for me, is where the rubber meets the road in a spiritual practice. Um, I find myself in a confusing landscape of disappointment, heaviness, despair sometimes. It just feels like a very vulnerable moment. Um, my heart feels heavy. My faith in collective wisdom feels tested. So I'm asking myself, how does this idea of right effort support me? Support me. I'm going to share what the Pali Canon has to say about right effort. Um, First off, right effort, the sixth element of the Eightfold Path. It's grouped in the cluster called mental discipline, along with right mindfulness and right concentration. So my understanding of that is that right effort isn't so much about what you do, what actions you take, as it is about um, how how we direct our mental energy in wholesome ways that support our
Mhm.
liberation from suffering. The Pali Canon, our oldest known Buddhist scriptures, lists the four dimensions of right effort or right diligence, as Thich Nhat Hanh calls it. There's lots of lists, of course, here. The four dimensions of right effort, they are preventing unwholesome states from arising, abandoning unwholesome states that have already arisen, cultivating wholesome mental states, and nourishing wholesome states that have already arisen. So, just briefly,
What was the last one?
the last one is nourishing wholesome states that have already arisen. A little bit squishy, like most Buddhist lists. But you can kind of parse them out a little bit, untangle them. Um, just briefly, so preventing unwholesome states from arising. First off, what do we mean by that? What's an unwholesome state? And please, Joshin, interrupt anytime. I'm likely to get much of this wrong, but um, they one description of these unwholesome states is what are called the five hindrances: sensual desire, ill will, dullness, drowsiness, restlessness or worry, anxiety, and doubt. And I can tell you that I have experienced every single one of these in the last 12 hours, starting with sensual desire. I ate an entire frozen pizza all by myself, and I did not feel any better afterwards. Ill will, yeah, I have some of that. I do. I won't lie. Dullness and drowsiness I'm experiencing as we speak. Restlessness, anxiety, and worry, pretty much my constant companions. And doubt, yeah, serious doubt about pretty much everything. So that's where I'm at with the five hindrances right at this minute. Um, so what does it mean to prevent these states from arising? Does it mean repressing uncomfortable emotions? I don't think so. Um, I think, I mean, there's a lot of ways I guess you could look at it, but I feel like it's more about um, making decisions to not indulge in activities that will lead to these unwholesome states. For instance, I feel like raging, but I know that I'll feel awful afterwards. I feel like having a drink. Uh, I know that that's not an option for me. Um, I mean, we're always told to stay in the moment, but I think that there's times when a little projection into the future can be very helpful. Um, th- Thinking about the consequences of these things can prevent these unwholesome states. So that's one way to look at it. And I think it can also mean just recognizing when these states arise, just noticing them, back to mindfulness. And for me, I think there's probably a call for a healthy dose of self-compassion. Um, that seems to help. I'm not perfect. So abandoning unwholesome states that have already arisen, it's sort of like hard to tell what the difference between those two things are unless you're really, really paying attention and you're super mindful. But but recognizing negative, thought habit patterns when they arise is huge. Again, just paying attention, mindfulness. Um, and being led by one's values, by by your intention, or by my intention, letting myself be led by my intention and letting go of outcomes. Nobody I can personally, that I know, probably none of us can control the outcome of a national presidential election. We can point our intention in the right direction. And I think that for me, recognizing this releases some frustration. So cultivating wholesome mental states, our practice gives us so many ways to do this. You know, Buddhism is so often described as, dark, and because we actually confront suffering in a direct way, it's sometimes described as depressing. But I'll tell you what, the Dharma offers us so many beautiful ways to. The whole thing is about cultivating a happy life and joyfulness. We, we have the guidance of the 16 Bodhisattva precepts, which are pretty rock steady guideposts, and clear. We have the wisdom of the Brahma Viharas. You guys all remember those: metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha. So loving kindness, compassion. This one's a tough one: taking joy in the good fortunes of others, and equanimity. And we have the six perfections or paramitas: generosity, ethics, patience, joyful effort, meditative concentration, and wisdom. There's so much in the Dharma about how to how to live a happy life. And we have the Noble Eightfold Path. So there's lots of ways to cultivate wholesome mental states. And nourishing wholesome states that have already arisen. I love this because it makes me think about those moments. Do you have those moments, fleeting moments of irrational happiness that aren't attached to anything, and they last about a nanosecond? You know what I mean? Like birds, flock of bird exploding out of a tree into a blue sky, and you're just suddenly filled with this sense of amazement. And then, at least for me, it passes so quickly and I forget right away. And sometimes it's not attached to anything, you know, it could be a horrible rainy day and I just suddenly feel just briefly filled with this sense of well-being and I forget and I think it's important but boy give me a resentment and I'll never let it go. I mean that'll be a pebble in my shoe for all of eternity. So um, um, I think we're just probably hardwired that way, but I think it's a wonderful practice to notice those moments and appreciate them. I think there's more of them than we think, at least for me. So I've heard those moments just called glimmers. I heard that word recently and I thought that was pretty lovely. So those are the four, what did they call them? The four dimensions of right effort. Just another sticky thing about right effort, I think for me, is finding that middle way. Um, Before his enlightenment, we know that Siddhartha practiced extreme asceticism. And after his enlightenment, he taught that practice should be like a well tuned string instrument. If the strings are too loose, they won't play a sound. If they are too tight, they will break. Practice, just to say, practice should nourish us. It should be nourishing, not draining. So I asked Kyogen this more than once, and he talked about that. I never found it really helpful. It was like, that's not helpful. What do you mean, not too much and not too little? That doesn't help me much at all. But the idea of practice being nourishing and not draining is helpful. That's a way you could sort of titrate what you're doing, at least on the cushion. And just a little comment for me on the bigger picture, because this has been helpful for me. Elections are moments in time. They're important, but they're not the whole story of our journey here on Earth. In 2004, the race was George W. versus John Kelly, and I was losing my mind. I was losing my mind. I had never in my life felt such active hatred, and I was shocked by that energy, by its energy. Two Dharma teachings were offered to me at that time. I'm sure there were more offered to me, but I remember these two. They've stuck with me. My friend Genko Rainwater, who she had at that time a few years of practice under her belt, sternly advised me to practice metta. And in Sanzen, Kyogen told me politics are samsara. And I've really kept those two ideas close, and they've developed over time. I didn't understand either of them at first. And, you know, they still go in and out, but they definitely become clearer to me in time. And both of these practices and understandings have been immensely helpful and still are. In the relative world, elections are won and lost, and one side's happy and the other side loses and despairs, and dukkha rules. And it matters, it does matter. Everything we do matters, and we have to do everything we can to alleviate that suffering. Um, but in my own moments of despair, I find comfort in the absolute view that politics is samsara, that it's all been done before. As my dad uh, used to say, it's all written on water. So I think in the end, for me, right effort is pretty much about staying awake, just staying awake to our emotions, to our potential, and mostly to the possibility of transformation. Every moment is an opportunity to practice. Every disappointment is a Dharma teaching to deeper understanding. And right effort isn't about trying to win. It's about staying true to our deepest values, moment by moment, election after election. And I'm so grateful to have a Sangha to walk this path with courage and compassion and clarity. Thank you. And I have a lot of questions in case you don't have any.
Well, I think of right effort starting for me with just having a morning practice. Okay, I make the effort to get up, to do the various steps of my practice, and I am making an effort. I'd rather stay in bed, I'd rather go read the paper or have breakfast, but the effort, it is, my practice is so important that that is a part of the effort to just go ahead and do it every day. The reading, the meditation, the prayer work, all of it is, I can't skip it. I mean, for me, that's the effort that starts the day. That doesn't mean everything's great from then on, but that is the start. That's the effort that I make at the beginning of the day. And then watch out.
But it seems like you have really got that middle way balance going on. You know, it's just the right amount. At least that's what it looks like from the outside.
I really work, I mean, you mentioned the Brahma Viharas, and yeah, the equanimity is something that, it's all wrapped up in no judgment and being mindful. I mean, it's just, you can't separate them really. They're all the same. And somehow, from the years of practice that even in the midst of horrible thoughts and everything else, we come back to what we need to remember at that point. That's the effort that we've made over the years comes in, not that we do it perfectly all day long, but that when we screw up, we know what it is we need to do. We've made the effort to know all those can take to rectify things.
I love that. Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
my talk.
that's awesome.
I love, excuse me, I love that because a couple weeks ago when we were talking, what was it we were talking about with Shokai? It was
Activity.
right action,
Yeah.
right? Right action. And the idea of just showing up like came up. I love how all these different things intertwine with each other and how important it is to show up, like just make the decision to just, I'm going to do this. I made a decision. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to meditate every day. And that's like everything. I mean, that's, you have to show up or else nothing will get done. So
Takes a little effort sometimes.
Thanks for this great talk, inspiring. I love your honesty and the humor that comes with it. I could identify, but I see effort as action with intention, and actually not having the candidate I voted for to win. I decided that at least 3 people I know in their 20s, I called them and I said, it's not just your generation, but do something for the climate, get involved, educate yourself, and, something more than just recycle. It's for everybody. And I may not have done that if Kamala had won. I still would be on that page, but I wouldn't be drawn to say, okay, I know these people and, call them from time to time, but I thought I have to do this because that's part of where I'm coming from, not to, to take action. I'm not, unfortunately, I wish I were surprised, but I was surprised, but anyway, great that we have this tonight because I needed my community aside from my actual practice. And the sixth in numerology means to be in service to others. And I think a lot of long-standing spiritual practices touch on that. And that's part of what we can do in our dismay. Thank you.
What a great reminder.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that we have this community tonight and that we're talking about right effort, because I didn't even know what right effort exactly was. And your talk helped clarify that, that we make an effort to do things. And I'm also not super surprised. I was surprised at, how many, how many people voted for the person that I was not for. But, I also appreciated what Kamala said, that we just have to work harder. And, so there's the effort, and we can do what we need to do. Each person does different stuff, but I like the idea of service, doing service. And having just got back from Ukraine, it really hits me even harder, because I think, what's going to happen to those people? But, doing, I feel like I have to double down in my practice and also in my service to other people. And, and I'm not sure what that means yet, but, I think that, I appreciate having right effort tonight, to talk about it, because, it's, I mean, I went walking through my neighborhood today and ran into the people that, we have a pretty red neighborhood, except we do have people that I love. And, and one woman was walking to the river because she just needed to go hug a tree and, do a little nature bathing and, to help her through this. But, I think right effort is all of this, how we take care of ourselves in this time. So thanks a lot, Emily, for this talk.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like the effort, right effort to me is like, yeah, cultivating the wholesome states from which right action will flow spontaneously, right? I mean, the Buddha said that hate can't be healed with hate. I have the Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, the fourfold right diligence or right effort, he writes, is nourished by joy and interest. If your practice does not bring you joy, you are not practicing correctly. Does your practice bring you joy?
I think so. And the word joy is interesting because, yeah, like at first, when I think about joy, maybe like years ago when I first thought about joy, we've talked about joy before. I kind of like is it conflate is the right word? The word with euphoria, right? But I don't think joy is euphoria. I think it's more kind of like more of a peaceful kind of feeling. So maybe it's not necessarily pleasant all the time, but it does bring me peace, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me to plug the wonderful, so helpful for me anyway, book Awakening Joy by James Baraz, who was the co-founder of the Spirit Rock Vipassana Meditation Center. It's Nancy and I have studied it for years together and shared it, and I just find myself coming back to it all the time. It's Buddhist based, but you know, it's just all about cultivating wholesome states.
That would be a good one for us to read at some point.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Sorry, who's the author again? I'll grab my pen.
Yeah, James Baraz, B like in boy, Araz like in Zen.
Thanks.
Yeah. And he's also offering an online series about dealing with post-election emotions. If you Google him, you can look it up.
Connie and I did that whole series, ran off reams of copies of the lessons that we did.
The Awakening Joy.
Yeah, Awakening Joy. Yeah.
Awesome.
Then I threw it all away. I didn't like it.
Oh, you didn't like it?
I didn't feel awakened.
I
I
feel
don't.
like
I mean,
that.
joy is a funny word for me.
It is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you said, Oni, about joy. Like, it is a weird word, and I think for me, maybe joy has a lot of expectations. So if I'm not feeling joy, then I'm maybe not giving myself enough self-compassion or whatever. But I like the peacefulness because I don't practice as much as I should and want to. But when I do, it does really give me that reward of peacefulness. And it made me think of I think what Dixie said about the power of the pause. I've been thinking about that a lot. Power of the pause. Just, and I have a tendency to run all over the place and try and do all this stuff, and my brain is just full of clutter, and I can't seem to organize it, especially as I get older. I can't organize it anymore. And the pause is just perfect. And for me, part of that pause is if I can go outside or notice something outside and just pause and look at nature. We've talked about that tonight, to look at nature. Like today, I heard the crows squawking, and I look up and there's a hawk, flying with probably something in his mouth to eat, and all the crows were following it, doing their thing. And I thought, that's pretty cool. It's the way life is for up there in the sky. I thought it was kind of neat, but yeah, it kind of fits. I like that peace. It does. It brings me peace because you can't. Clutter has to go away for a few minutes. That's good.
Yeah, I never really resonated with the word joy either. We used to have long discussions about that in our group. So, like, pick a word that works better. Joy sounds a little frenetic to me. Like a big party with noisemakers and balloons and stuff. But yeah, serenity, equanimity, whatever works for you.
I also wanted to say, like, about the whole election results. I'm on the same page as everybody has talked, but I was, I think, totally shocked and wondering what is going on with our country, But then I'm to the point already where I'm thinking, we don't know what's going to happen, and maybe there's opportunity in here for transformation, for things that we have no clue what's going to happen. It it may really turn out that a lot of people who don't seem to, I don't know, it might turn out that people learn a lot more than maybe I think they're going to. I mean, there could be a lot of, ooh, this is hard for me to say, but there could be a lot of positive things that come out of it. I mean, that's hard to say because it's hard to swallow right now, but I think it's highly possible.
Well, thank you for saying that, Trish. I mean, it's cyclic, right? You know, it's like the guy whose horse got stolen, that story where, you know, it's like who knows what's good and what's bad in the end. We'll never know that. It's a cycle. But yeah, thanks for saying that. We don't know what's going to happen. We just don't know. It's not comfortable to not know, but there's a lot of wisdom in that.
That's the reality. I mean, we really think we know, but we really don't know.
We don't know
for a
anything.
minute what could happen. And we don't.
Yeah.
I don't like that insecurity, but we don't. I mean, you think you're gonna go to the store, okay, you pull out a driveway and something happens, you don't go. I mean, you don't really know for sure until it happens.
No.
I really appreciate you saying that, Trish, because um, we worry about what's going to happen when we don't know what's going to happen. And then we get eaten up by the worry. So we're hurting ourselves by worrying and thinking we know what's going to happen. But you're right, we don't know. And it could be an opportunity, an opportunity for growth in us. And I always hated when people said that. When something bad happened to me and I would go, and they'd say, oh, it's an opportunity for growth. And I'd go, I don't want it, but that's what it could be.
It's also called a effing growth opportunity.
Yeah.
I also like what you said. I like what everybody said, but Ruth, I like what you said about calling up your younger friends and saying, do something more than recycle, do something about the climate, because I think that's one of my biggest fears. And so I don't, it'd be really fun to have a discussion of what could we do? What can we do? I mean, doing something would make us all probably feel better, but doing nothing.
Well, cultivating wholesome states, supporting them when they arise, abandoning unwholesome states, being mindful of all those things, that's doing something.
Yeah, that's true.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, the verb cultivate is used often in Buddhist teaching because I think of it like gardening. You can have your hours put in, but you're dependent on factors from nature, but it doesn't happen just with good intention, and it happens over time, bit by bit. So that not counting on results, but just go ahead, do it anyway, kind of thing. And Jordan Cove is no longer a project on the coast in Oregon, luckily, but it took 18 years of activism, of grassroots. And in democracy, nothing comes, it's not top down, it's from people. So in that bit, even though You know, it's not about politics. It's just about the world we live in. And yeah, I'm just glad to be with you all tonight. Thanks.
What's on your mind, Dennis?
Your talk was very, very inspiring. Right effort. I'm thinking right effort means to not shoot ourselves with that second arrow.
Mm-hmm.
We're already suffering with a situation that everybody didn't want to have happen. And then, the second arrow comes when you start talking about what's going to happen. Nothing's happened yet. As everybody said, but we don't know. It's, and that is, as everybody knows, is the source of dukkha when you're resisting against what is. And, there's maybe a not so fine line there. I mean, at some point you need to resist, but, there has to be some level of acceptance too, because it is reality and there's nothing you can do about it at this point.
Yeah. I mean, acceptance is one of those tricky words. We need a new word for when we're talking about seeing reality clearly.
Yeah.
Because you can't resist something until you see it clearly. And acceptance is a word that's so often confused with,
Complacence.
Complacence
Yeah.
and condoning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always an internal struggle.
Yeah.
Do I resist? Am I being too complacent? You don't want to be just,
Right.
Someone that, is okay with, bad stuff. We don't want to support bad stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but acceptance doesn't mean you're okay with it. It means you see clearly what it is.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be painful. But it has to be a starting place, I think.
Yeah. For people that are active and initiate change, it's hard to not want to do something. So it's hard to just kind of accept. But really, when it comes down to it, you really don't have much choice. All the angst and worry just ends up being that second arrow that you really don't need.
Yeah, it doesn't change reality.
Right.
The things of this world are just as they are. The mind and its object are one. But that's the commentary to the precept of not stealing. And that has to do with what we do with our minds, where we focus our thoughts and our intentions and our efforts, and how we meet this world that we encounter.
Great, Josh, and we needed that. I needed that.
So beautifully put.
To add on to, I don't know if it doesn't really add on, because you can't add on to what you just said, because it's perfect, but I was just thinking for myself, I guess I don't understand our country. I really don't. So I am really ignorant, and I think I stand to learn a lot about our country. I know I'm really fortunate, and so I don't really understand. I'm gonna understand more. I really think that this process and how it all happens as we move forward, it's gonna help me understand things that I really have no comprehension of, and I think that's gonna be a really good thing for me.
there may be groups of people tonight. We are all pretty much of one mind. I'm sure there are people that are of the other candidates' mind, groups of Christians that are getting together, that are praising God for bringing what they wanted. And we happen to be on the other side of that, but we have a community here and it's very nourishing for all of us. And we have a path and we have, we support each other. And I'm quite sure that there are groups of others that have a completely different path and a completely different community, but they're still getting together, supporting each other, perhaps reveling in the results today. And we happen to be a community that is not reveling today.
Would you like to give us the closing verse?
I can't hear you.
I was asking Joshin if she would like to give us the closing verse.
Yeah, and before I do, I just want to point out that not all Christians are reveling.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are many who are,
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of people processing in a lot of ways.
In addition to that, I want to encourage anybody who is feeling exceptionally distraught or processing in any way. We have such a gift, a depth of Dharma experience right at our fingertips. Avail yourself of Joshin's wisdom and Shintai as well. If you feel the need, that's what they're for.
Abiding in this ephemeral world like a lotus in muddy water, the mind is pure and goes beyond. Thus we bow to Buddha. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, maha prajna paramita. Thank you all for being here tonight. That was a lovely talk and discussion, Teiko.
Yeah.
Thank you, Teiko.
Thank
Oh,
you,
thanks.
Teiko. That was really good.
Good night.
Yeah,
Thanks,
sure.
you guys.
Good night.
Good to see everybody tonight.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.